results guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. Delighted to have your company. Don't forget to like, share and follow us on our Facebook. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Alan Roth, Mark McGee and Steven Naismith with me here for the programme. You can contribute. Give us your thoughts. Are you optimistic about Scotland's chances after that great win over the Czech Republic? Was it a great win? Were there great performances? Was it an occasion where we rode our luck? Give us your thoughts on that. We'll get the thoughts of Mark, Stevie and Roughie as well. And as ever, it's always nice when we give you a chance to win something, and here are the details of our competition. You could win all these fantastic prizes by entering our competition. If you like what you see, you can share it with your friends and you can follow us for all the latest breaking football news. Join the football family at PLZ Soccer on Facebook and you could win all these fantastic prizes. Can't be bad, Roughie. A wee iPad thrown in there with a few Legends t-shirts. That looks good, doesn't it?
Yep. Well,
you've been cleaning out your garage.
The Aberdeen Cup Winners' Cup top is not leaving for nothing. It's not getting sold yet. Don't worry about it, McGee. It's staying. Anyway, well, that is the competition. iPad the lot. Doesn't get any better than that. And it's fairly simple. Like, share and follow us. Share it with your friends. And if you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, we'll pick out the lucky winner end of next week. So good luck with that. Okay, give us your thoughts, Roughie. 1-0. I told you it was going to be a solitary goal, and in the end, that's how it proved.
Yeah, I think at the beginning we wanted some kind of momentum to grow, to go into the Serbia game. I think game on game we can see improvement. There obviously are things that you've got to sort of tidy up on. But on the whole, I think the players, the manager, the supporters will be happy that we'll finish this group campaign as it is just now and get into a game with a bit of momentum. And I'm sure Stevie will know that it's going to be a harder game away from home rather than at home. But I'm sure the players have went away back to their clubs and they'll be encouraged as well. And looking forward to that game.
Yeah, there's a tremendous feel-good factor I can see from the messages coming up on our channel. Good afternoon from a very happy Scot in Birmingham. So you can sense right away, that's John Donald. Great for a Scotland win. Well done, Scotland, says Gordon Herriot. Ian Hamilton is watching from Mexico, no less. Ian, delighted you could join us. We wanted a good start, Stephen. I think that was important. Now, I think the move itself was more down to the real attitude from the start about pressing high and forcing them into a mistake, and that's how we got that opening chance.
It was possibly the best start we could have got, and I think that helped throughout the night because Czechs, as you've seen throughout the night, they were a decent team. But especially when you play with wing backs, that's always a fight with the opposition, trying to press higher up the pitch to push their wide players back effectively and set the tempo right off. And for the goal, Stephen O'Donnell sets the tone for that. And every player, you can't just take for granted that, the ball's fell and Ryan Jack's getting about it, Lyndon Dykes has got it, and Ryan Frey. They're in specific areas that the manager and they'll have worked on during the week. So perfect start, and it gave us something to kind of hold on to through the kind of tougher times throughout the night.
Now, the one thing that a number of the players mentioned, and we'll hear from the manager and the players shortly, Mark, but the one thing that they mentioned that I thought was evident in your time with Gordon as the Scotland management team was you needed that wee bit of luck. As you go up and you play better opposition, you need that little run of luck. And we had that last night, Mark.
Yeah, I think but luck. What is it they say? Luck's where preparation meets opportunity. And I think that they have a clear strategy at the moment under Steve. They've no illusions. They don't feel as if they're going to score 3 or 4 goals. So they set themselves up to be really hard to beat. And they know that when they go 1-0 up, and even though it's after only 6 minutes, they know that they can keep a clean sheet by what's been happening recently. So in a sense, it's a great scenario for them, as opposed to maybe going to go down after 6 minutes and then not wondering if they can score 2 goals, not having the confidence to believe that they can score 2 goals. But I think they would have had the confidence to think, good enough, 1-0 at this stage, we'll keep this.
Yeah, absolutely. Gabriel Antonazzi, our reporter, was there, and he caught the mood of the camp after that 1-0 win.
Scotland beat the Czech Republic 1-0 at Hampden Park last night in an impressive defensive display. The Scots were resolute after taking an early lead through Ryan Fraser, and they did ride their luck at times as the visitors missed 3 huge chances. Nonetheless, it was a fantastic victory and solid performance, which gave manager Steve Clarke with something to be proud of.
We've got back that Scottish spirit where you don't want to get beat, you're digging in, teams are coming to Hampden, we want to make it as difficult as possible for them. That's what we want to do. We want people to think, oh, Scotland at Hampden, so hopefully this month has helped us with that.
It's now 8 games in a row unbeaten for Clarke's men, the longest run since 1988, and also 3 clean sheets in a row. Goalscorer Ryan Fraser, who impressed again in his second striker role, is setting his sights high.
I think we can achieve anything we really want to put our minds to. It's been a year of hard work since the managers came in, and getting it was never just going to be done overnight, and you can see all the stuff that he's been kind of pounding into us in the last year and what he wants from us, and you can see that we don't look like conceding in too many goals in the game.
So Scotland are now just 2 points away from winning their Nations League group, which has a host of benefits.
And a big chance to win it, which would obviously get us promotion to the A group, which is where we want to be. We want to be challenging ourselves against the top teams, because that's the only way you'll improve. It'll improve our standing in the rankings, and hopefully come the next World Cup draw, we get a favourable draw.
Confidence is building with the Nations League title in sight, but up next it's the big one, Serbia in the playoff final.
Mark, Stephen and I were discussing it just before we come on here. How important is it, do you feel, that players suddenly buy into a manager? Because after the game last night, Ryan Fraser said something significant that quite a lot of people picked up on. He said, a lot of us were playing games for ourselves rather than as a unit, as a team. How important is it that players eventually buy in to your ethos and you can sense that moment when they are on side with you?
I think that's vital to, having a run of games like they've had. However, and Naisie's witness to this, I wouldn't say that for instance, under Gordon, that there was anything but the same thing going on. You don't have this sort of performance against England and those sort of games unless you're playing as a team. So I don't think that's particularly a new thing. I think that what is happening now is they're getting that momentum. Games are coming at the right time. Czech Republic at home last night was a good game to have. It was a winnable game, and they did brilliantly well to win it. They're not taking away from them. They now go away to Serbia, and whether they've had 7 games, 8 games, 10 games, 20 games unbeaten, it comes to a point where there's a game you've got to win to be successful. This is the game. This is the game they've got to win. Forget about the other games. Now, I said it last week in the show, or earlier in the week in the show, that I firmly believe they'd win last night, and I firmly believe they'll beat Serbia. And I think that after beating Czech Republic last night, I only feel stronger about that. I think we have a great chance of beating Serbia, and I think they will go and do the business. But that's what they've got to be measured against, that game and that result.
Well, listen, right now, after listening to you for about 2 seconds here, I want to get the shield out, a sword, and just go out and fight everybody. That is absolutely magnificent, Roughie. I have to tell you, he's got me fired up. And I'm trying not to put a dampener on it, but there are 2 issues there that I want to get your thoughts on. But Roughie, first and foremost, apart from anything else, there were a number of boys in the side there who may not have been first choice, but they gave their all. Gallagher continues to impress. Considine is a boy who came in at international level and answered the call. Hanlon come on, he was 30 years of age. A number of players, even in that starting 11. McGinn's just a machine. I don't know how he does it, but he looks as if he could play for 120 minutes.
Yeah, and it was interesting at the interview. Stevie Clarke after it said quite a good thing. When the next squad gets announced, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people want to be in the squad. and sometimes that has been a problem. And I think anybody who's been about the squad for the last 3 or 4 games will be dying to see the squad when it's announced and hoping that their names are in it, because there obviously is 2 or 3 guys to come back. And it'll be interesting to see, unfortunately, there's some people have to drop out, but it'll be interesting to see the ones that have really impressed them. And for me, we've found a number 9 in this whole tournament. The wee boy Fraser's now beginning to look the part in a Scotland jersey. We know he can do it at club level, but he hasn't done it with us, but he's looking the part now. It'd be interesting, I don't know if Mark's got any view on it. These 4 games we've had have all been at home, Mark. We're going away now, an away game. Do you think you'll still stick with the 3 at the back?
I think he'll still believe that they're not going to score 3 or 4 goals. So in a sense, the starting point is we do not want to concede. Now they've proven that they can make that work for them. They've got a great goalkeeper. The back 3, whoever they've been, has had the same effect. And I think that by the Serbia game, there'll be 1 or 2 back that will make them even stronger. So yeah, I do not see why he would mess about with it. But he knows the players, he knows the squad, he's going to be studying Serbia, and I think we've got to trust that he'll make the right decision. But I don't see why it would change.
Well, before I get Stevie's thoughts on this, I'll give you this question, Mark. Is there still the dilemma that he's got coming up for that big game on Tierney and Robertson?
Yeah, well, I knew you were going to say that. If they're both fit, you want them both in the team. And if there are other players fit that allow you, not to play one of them, then obviously you'll consider that. But, there are 2 of the top players in the squad, without any shadow of a doubt. Andy Robertson is, a European Cup winner, and now Kieran Tierney playing at Arsenal and getting raving. I've got mates that are season ticket holders at Arsenal, and they're raving about, the future of Kieran Tierney's future and being a future captain at Arsenal, So you can't really afford not to have players as good as that in your team, but you have to balance it. And you have to pick a team that you think is going to win the game. I'd be surprised if they're not both in it, if they're both available. But again, you've got to trust the manager. He'll see them, he sees the others, and he'll pick a team that's right for the night.
Yeah, well, I've been listening to everybody.
As well, Peter, just on that, I think the back 3 helps the manager's selection. If he stays with a back 3, it's easier to put the 2 of them in the team. Kieran's done that for Arsenal many times this season. So I think that alone would suggest that he's more likely to stay with a 3 at the back, I think.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you that, Stephen, because quite simply, I've been listening to a number of pundits, and some people. I was listening to David Seaman down south, who was talking about the fact, he said, there is absolutely no doubt that if you've got players who are playing in the top league in England, I don't want to get into a debate over whether it's the best league in Europe, but it's certainly up there, and they're playing against top players. That's the absolute bonus for a manager like Steve Clarke, which is why I'm looking at Mark's point here. You can't leave out a Tierney or put him on the bench and a Robertson. They're just so used to playing against top players.
Yeah, and another example is McTominay. To be fair, because he's come in, effectively you could say shoehorned him into a back 3, but a month ago everybody was a bit saying he's a bit shaky, blah blah blah. A month on, comfortable and perfect in the position.
Is there anybody?
I think we spoke. Sorry, Peter. We spoke about this earlier in the week, Alan. We said about the fact that as good as John McGinn is, and as good as Kieran Tierney is, and even Andy Robertson to a degree, because he's not that long in his Liverpool career, a couple of years. You imagine in another 2 years when all of those boys, Ollie McBurney, when all of those boys have had another 100 Premier League games, how good they're going to be, So anything we're achieving at the moment, I think we can look ahead and say, well, it's only going to get better.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, I agree with you. Fingers crossed that they start to get into what I call, Roughie, the moment when you know you've got a team that's performing well is you can usually pick 9 or 10 of them and one person might force his hand. Is there a candidate, Roughie, that you think is going to force the manager's hand that maybe he hadn't considered before, but suddenly he's emerged?
Well, I don't think Dykes is forcing his hand. Dykes has done everything that more than I think a lot of us expected. We didn't know whether he was going to make that step up. You're looking at the players who weren't there. Ryan Christie, do you find a place for Ryan Christie? I think McTominay will stay where he is. I don't think he'll tamper with that a wee bit. But no, I don't think there's anybody who's played in the last 3 games hasn't let themselves down. There's nobody that's went in that any of us could say, well, he's not up for it. Every one of them has performed, and even the ones that have come on have done their bit.
Yeah, Robert McLeod has just messaged there. He says, Peter, the whole country is fired up. Yeah, that sometimes is a problem with our nation. We do get fired up, and then just at that point, there is always a little moment. And I thought the closest we've come in 20 years of some really poor teams and poor performances under certain managers, and I don't want to go back over, but I actually thought you, Mark, and Gordon had the nation at a point where they were onside and we were oh so close. We liked the football, it was well organised, but it's that next step. It was just that whether it's a little bit of luck or maybe there wasn't enough quality that you would have really wanted at the right time. Now we're in that situation again. I think the Gordon Strachan, Mark McGee and your backroom team moment is coming for Steve Clarke with Serbia. We were all thinking it was going to be Haaland we were going to worry about. Now we're looking at Mitrovic and more than a few other of his supporting cast that are good players.
Yeah, well, I think that, as I said a minute ago, I think it all comes down to an important game. And this is the important game.
Yeah, don't worry, you're still with us. I can still hear you, Mark. James Docherty says, we will be there, Peter. He says, this is our time. There's lots of... and Kevin McManus says, Mark McGee got my hopes up after that inspirational talk. Kevin, you're not the only one. Honestly, Roughie and I and Steven were ready to go out and fight anybody in the street. That was sensational. But listen, I hope you're right on this one. Lots of people trying to just temper it a little as well. I'm going to try and get as many balanced points of view on this because a lot of people are mentioning the fact, calm your jets, there were 2 real glaring chances that I think, Stevie, had they scored Czech Republic last night, I don't think too many people would have thought they didn't deserve it.
No, I think a fair result would have been a draw with the chances they had. And but that shows you the Czech team were a composed team. They didn't rush anything, even to the last minute. They're working the ball up the pitch with a composure and an understanding what they're trying to achieve. But on the flip to that, you look how many bodies we had out. So I think there's no reason why we can't be as optimistic as we have been so far. But as Mark said, it is literally down to this next month's game, for the short term anyway. That everybody will be hoping for the win, but like Mark, I'm really confident.
Yeah, well, we'll be able to tell. Mark's confident as well. He just sneaks out every now and then just to get himself a glass, just a glass of wine there, Roughie.
No, I think my thing's failing a wee bit because the power's going down, so I'm just going to put it on the mains. Give me 2 seconds, please.
Yeah, we'll crash on with that, Mark. And
Peter, just on when you were talking about players giving the manager a headache, I think the biggest one will be Stephen O'Donnell. Came in 3 games, done really, really well when Palmer's been the kind of go-to guy in recent times. I think that'll be one of the toughest ones for the manager.
It's a good point you make because, Roughie, I like Stephen as a person. I think he's a great lad. I think he's battled away. If anything, I think sometimes he doesn't believe he's as good as he's proved to be. I think he suffers sometimes from a confidence issue with him, whether he feels as if he's got the right to be there or not, I don't know. But his high press brought us the goal. He's put some beautiful passes into Dykes in behind. Sometimes, though, I think against better attackers, he gets caught out one-on-one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the problem with most wing backs. We all love them with the halfway line going forward, and you can look at every one of them, Robertson, Tierney, anybody, wee Frimpong, everybody gets forward, Tavernier. They are vulnerable defensively. They're vulnerable defensively because most of their game for 90 minutes is going forward and getting into areas where other people should be covering for them. If they're making runs, for the halfway line into the opposition, it's up to people behind to cover that space. And I think a lot of times they get very unfair criticism for that. But going forward, I think he's as good as anybody. But defensively, yeah, you're going to say if they were to stick a winger out there, then they'd have second thoughts of how it would stop them from playing. But that's what good managers do. They identify, the good players in the team, and then they put players in their position to stop them going forward. And, that would be the only problem if we were backs to the wall. That's why, I'm not taking away anything, the 4 results that we've had and the stats that go with it. I'd have loved it to have been 2 away games. I'd have loved it to have been 2 away games when we hadn't conceded and we had won 1-0 with both games. And then I'd feel really confident that we can go away from home against decent sides and come back with a clean sheet and come back with a win. So that's just the way the games were, 4 at home. So, yeah, I think it's a different proposition away from home, but I'm sure Stevie and the guys will know exactly what they're coming up against.
Yeah, and quite a lot of people obviously referring to your state of mind earlier on in the week, Roughie, when you had this kind of a hard-hitting edge as a pundit, and being fairly negative. But thankfully, I put a bit of positivity in McGee there to help you out. And I feel as if you're coming back, Roughie, to the old Roughie that I've known for the last 9 years. I'm not sure I like the hard-hitting sourpuss Roughie that was there Monday and Tuesday. Nevertheless, it's only 1 win. We've got a big game against Serbia. Let's keep our fingers crossed. One little point that I would make on it, though, Stephen, that you were talking about there. If you look at the group now, it's great viewing for us. Steve Clarke's talking about the implications of one more win in that group, and suddenly we could go up to A. And then the next minute, you're 90 minutes away from a major championships again. It's amazing how close we're getting to where we wanted to be. Nobody's talking about think tanks. Nobody's talking about grassroots football. Nobody's talking about reorganising the entire country.
Yeah, I think the Nations League's definitely helped us. It's made the route, I think, as Mark said before and spoke about our campaigns back when the manager and him were involved. It was tougher. The groups were bigger. There was more competition and less teams qualifying from a pot of teams around about each other. So the margins were tighter. So it's fantastic again, and it's good for the players just to get in that mindset of, right, we've got this wee group, let's get through it, win it, and see what it brings. But one more result is all you need. It's impressive.
Last little point on Scotland before we look at all the other results and then look ahead to the weekend, Mark. Steve Clarke said something which is, obviously those players that played last night, fair play to them, but every player in Scotland, every player who's Scottish who's playing anywhere else across Europe, especially in England, you know what's at stake. Put yourself to the forefront now. There are maybe 2 or 3 places up for grabs, in his definitive 11 that he would like.
Well, the opportunity to go to one of these major finals, is there. And as you say, there will be places up for grabs, not just now, but when it comes round, of course, apart from blooming injury, you've now got COVID. You know what I mean? So there's all sorts of reasons to keep yourself in with a shout and to impress the manager and to want to be part of it now. Not more than ever. I mean, I've got to say, that what Stephen said is right there about the difference in the setup with the Nations League and that. But, we lost against Georgia away and we drew against Lithuania at home. And, there's no excuse for that. Those were bad results, So it wasn't just about the strength of the group. We lost to Germany, that's acceptable. Losing to Georgia wasn't really. So it wasn't all about, so don't take anything away. And I know Stephen isn't, but don't take away anything from the present setup and the results they're getting. I think it's superb what they're doing. Sorry, your question. I had to say that.
Yeah, the question was quite simply, there are two or three, I think, there are two
of
or
course,
three places that are up for grabs.
Yeah. And you know, and I think they have a great chance of getting to one of these finals, and I think Steven would love to be part of it, and I'm sure players would.
Yeah, don't worry about forgetting the question. I mean, that's par for the course on here at times. By the way, you know the Beatles have split up, don't you? It's a classic moment. Anyway, apart from anything else, here's how the results across the rest of the Nations League. Great result: Scotland against the Czech Republic, Israel defeating Slovakia. That was some game, and again, Zahavi scoring the goals. He got a hat trick. Turkey, a draw with Serbia. Northern Ireland didn't quite go according to plan for Northern Ireland. It's really kind of a fallen flat, that group for them. And of course, the Republic of Ireland defeated by Finland. Wales with a good win. Wales are a country like Scotland. Suddenly, everything is looking good again, not losing goals. England caught out there, and I think the other point here, you talk about players who can suddenly have a moment in their life where suddenly everything comes crashing around them. Well, Harry Maguire's certainly having that at the moment, and between him and the goalkeeper for England, they're getting it in the neck down south at the moment. So strange times, but it's only one defeat against Denmark. I don't think it'll thwart their march towards major finals. They won't be worrying about that with the quality they have. Okay, let's talk domestic football. Stevie's got a big game coming up. We're going to discuss Hearts against Dundee as well, because the championship is back. But the countdown to the Old Firm game is coming. And of course, the other thing that's concerning a lot of people is, especially Celtic and Rangers, is getting fans into the grounds. And I noticed that Celtic have revealed details of a survey they conducted with their supporters. This is what they had to say about it. The survey demonstrates an overriding willingness of fans to get back to Celtic Park when safe and to adhere to a wide range of safety measures as part of any return. Celtic has already worked tirelessly on establishing protocols for the safe return of supporters to Celtic Park. We have submitted detailed proposals to the government in terms of, firstly, establishing test events. We fully appreciate a return will be led by wider considerations. However, when we are given the green light, then we are ready to go. We understand that many of our fans, indeed all our communities, continue to face major challenges against the backdrop of the pandemic. And the survey itself, conducted with season ticket holders as well, and so many fans, just saying that, you know, they are willing to get in there and, of course, abide by the rules. And don't forget, it's 16.29. If you want to maybe just have a little drink, Roughie always tries to sneak a wee drink in when there's a graphic up. He has a wee gin and tonic, and then that's when he gets a wee spur for the second half of the show. And you can always, if you are on the podcast, Mark, when you're walking around Strathclyde Park, you can hear Roughie's ice in your ears, in your ear pods, when you're going round, so you know it's time for a bevy. So getting fans in, it's a constant dilemma here, Mark. And I feel as if people are, you know, whether it's the news and people's businesses, which I have tremendous sympathy. I mean, I have to stop myself from absolutely crying every night watching the news and people, and how difficult it is when they're on the verge of losing their businesses. And we have that dilemma now with chairmen and chief executives and owners in Scotland especially saying, look, give us the hope to get some fans in. We're going to abide by the rules. You've done it in other places. Give us a chance.
Well, I've been to a game this season with fans. As Archie, my son, and I, as season ticket holders at Brighton, we were able to qualify for getting 2 tickets when they played Chelsea, and there were 2,500 fans allowed in. And there was, of course, social distancing. There was masks in and out of the stadium. There was all the precautions that Celtic are describing there. And even with 2,500 in there was a great atmosphere. There was a good atmosphere. So, you know, that was only in one stand. So if they were to let 2,500 in each of the stands at Parkhead, the size of the place, maybe even a few more, with the sort of strict adherence to the rules that Brighton had put in place, then I think it's entirely feasible, even with the pandemic still being forefront. I know that, but I'm sure Celtic have done what Brighton done and taken every precaution. We felt perfectly safe. I wouldn't have taken Archie unless I'd felt that, but I felt perfectly safe at the game.
Yeah, and James Thompson makes a good point, which I think is annoying a lot of people. Peter, did they have a test event before the event at the London Palladium? Because that is something that really, I think, is sticking in a lot of people's throats, Stephen.
That is the biggest thing that frustrates football fans. You've got arguably you're still outdoors, you've got a vast area that you could use for fans to sit in, but yet airplanes can get packed. The Palladium's, what was it, 500, 1,000 people in it. That is a slap in the face to the football fans because there is the space required to, like Mark said, he had 2,500 at Brighton. I've always thought it was maybe going to be the getting in and out logistics of football stadiums that's going to cause the issue, but it doesn't seem to have been a problem in these test events.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many people highlighting games across Europe this week where fans were allowed in as well. Listen, we need a little shaft of light, a modicum of optimism, a chance to maybe get test events to give people the hope that we might be able to get fans in, money through the gates. But at the moment, doesn't seem that way. We are looking forward to the big derby on Saturday. It's a 12:30 kickoff. Interestingly enough, and I'm not sure, I don't want to get down the political road of leathering MPs, MSPs, and First Ministers and Prime Ministers. Nicola Sturgeon said something interesting today, Mark. She says we've had Neil Doncaster warning it. We've had the liaison officer from Celtic warning about fans coming anywhere near Celtic Park. We've had messages saying, look, do not come near the stadium for this game. Nicola Sturgeon saying, do not go into an environment where you're going to watch a game in a pub by travelling large distances or going into the house with your mates. Don't do it. Now, that message, I think she's ramming it home, and rightly so. But the second one actually jarred with me when she suggested that Sky Sports should allow the Celtic Rangers game to be aired free. And that, I think, was the one moment where I actually looked and I thought, no, I'm sorry, Nicola, I don't agree with you. Sky Sports has played a considerable amount of money, and certainly for that kind of A-list game, Mark, if anything, to try and veer away from fans watching that game elsewhere other than their house, should the government not have said, look, we'll pay for everybody to get it free rather than Sky Sports taking the hit?
Well, on your first point about fans coming to the stadium now, one of the things that I think would happen is that if you get that sort of thing, if fans start turning up, then they will totally sabotage and undermine their chances of being allowed into the stadium. So I think one of the things that has to happen is that supporters have to show that they are going to be on their absolute best behaviour. So when they're asked not to come to the stadium, don't come, because then you give them an excuse, the government or authorities, they give them an excuse to say, no, well, you couldn't behave yourself there, so how can we trust that you're going to behave yourself when you come inside the stadium? So that would be my first point. As for Nicola Sturgeon, I think she means well. I think that she said something about giving it free to air. Trying to kind of, in a sense, just help, but, our understanding of the sort of commercial sort of implications are maybe not 100%. And I think the problem is there are a lot of other big games on this weekend and every other weekend that Sky have paid for. And if you start letting the Rangers Celtic one free to air, then there's other ones that people will want free to air as well. And then you're on a kind of difficult ground. So I don't know the implications of it, so I can't really answer whether it's right or wrong. But I think Nicola just maybe didn't quite understand the commercial implications.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only part for me. Ian Noble says, do you really worry about Sky Sports money? Dear, oh dear. It's an interesting point. All my mates in Lanarkshire, if the thought of Celtic and Rangers game free to air, they'll all be singing and dancing, thinking, yeah, dancer. We finally get to watch the game in our house. Okay, I'm not coming round to my mate's house. Great, I get that. Ian's point, do you really worry about Sky Sports money? Well, for me, Sky Sports money is propping up the Premiership at the moment, Stephen.
It is. And every month and every game or section of games they pick the ones that they think are going to be the most lucrative for them. So it's a tricky the whole situation with the free to air games, and even we've only seen it with this pay-per-view ticket down in England, the £15 for that is causing a disagreement as well. So it is a tricky one, but I'm probably like yourself. They've done a lot, and they do a lot for Scottish football. They won the rights for is it the next 5 years? So I think and these decisions should have been made months ago. If that was something, it can't be a last minute, oh, show it on TV. It's not, as if very reactive situation to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. As you can tell, Roughie's not happy with Stevie's answer there, so he just started
Try to get his gin in
firing
there.
himself on. Well, I was just about to say, if he doesn't like it, he just puts his finger towards the screen, to try and get you off, Stevie. But we're having none of it. Hugh Scott makes a good point. He says Tam Cowan was shouting for that at the weekend, Peter, saying it should be free to air. Sorry, but I pay my subscription to Sky. Why should I do that for it to be given away? Plus, all everyone says is, why are Celtic and Rangers different? So, I mean, that's a good point as well. Will they do the same with the Dundee United Aberdeen game? I don't think so. There's all sorts of different arguments on this one. Tony Holton says, football's my addiction, so it's hard not to be there. Tony, absolutely get that. The pain, I think, more so for this game at the weekend when fans are not going to be there. I just wonder, Mark, we were talking about it, human nature, how players respond to games. You played in a few Old Firm games yourself, along with Steven. No fans there, we know. Players just have to get on with it, be professional. I'm sure you've played in a game where you've witnessed one of your teammates and you think he's like a rabbit in the headlights. This is not the game for him.
Well, I think part of the Old Firm game is the crowd. A huge part of the Old Firm is the rivalry and the competition between the two great clubs. So it's such a shame. Particularly, I feel for Rangers in a sense, because I think they're coming good, if you like. They're coming back, and I think they, as much as Celtic, would want the supporters in. But how the players, I mean, I've not played in it other than a pre-season. Stephen's the man to ask about that, because he's experienced and experiencing it. So, what's it like to play in? I don't know. I think I'd find it very, very difficult. I found it difficult to play in pre-season games. You couldn't hurt anybody. It was a difficult thing to do. So I don't know what it's like. Stephen, you can answer that far better than me.
I think, especially in the Old Firm, it's much harder for players to build that momentum or the adrenaline rush that fans will give you. I think the game at the weekend, everybody knowing it's an Old Firm, players will be up for it. I actually think it will suit Rangers that Celtic won't have a full crowd there. So it is strange, but it's only strange in those small minutes that the game maybe stops, the ball goes out for a throw-in. When you're in the game, you're actually that focused on what you're trying to do that it does kind of blank it out to an extent, but they are missed. And I think, like I said there, it'll suit Rangers with not having the crowd going against them.
Yeah, and of course, it's one of those games where we all love to talk about it in the build-up, and you'll be happy to know, here's a wee bit of information, we will be involved in the build-up with you on Saturday.
Join the football family with PLZ Soccer for Saturday's first Old Firm game of the season, where myself, Peter Martin and Darren Jackson will bring you all of the build-up from 11 a.m. live outside Celtic Park. We'll hear from Neil Lennon, Stephen Jarrett, players from both teams and much more before being back at the full-time whistle to break down the result. We'll analyse the game, hear from both managers again, and also read out all of your thoughts and questions. It's live on PLZ Soccer's Facebook, YouTube and Twitter channels from 11 a.m.
Hope you can join us at 11 in the morning. We didn't mention Roughie's name there, Mark, because obviously contractually he doesn't like to do too much work over the course of a week. But when he thought he was missing out, he called me this morning. Now, as you know, Mark, the big man never calls you unless there's an angle. So as soon as I get the call, I thought, well, he's not calling me about tennis. And suddenly the big man is now going to be with us, looking over the concourse at Celtic Park, Mark, because these are games that you don't want to miss.
Oh, you don't want to miss as a player. You don't want to miss as a supporter. You don't want to miss as a pundit. These are great games. And regardless of whether it's the first one of the season and you've got it all to go, the stakes are still high because whoever comes out on top has not just the bragging rights, but they have the kind of mentality, they have the kind of psychological advantage. That if Celtic can win this game, they kind of they suppress Rangers, and again a wee bit. If Rangers win it, then everything that everybody's been saying about them at the moment comes true, and suddenly Celtic are chasing their tail a wee bit. So yeah, it's got all the makings of a classic old firm in the sense that the stakes are high.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I move on, and there are other games I want to get your thoughts on, and well placed you guys are to talk about a number of the games that are taking place over the weekend. Roughie, they can talk about formations, they can talk about players that are available, might be available, might not. We're going to get everybody's prediction on it. I noticed that Kieran Tierney, Arsenal are going out of their way to try and get him available for their game against Manchester City. I think he's been tested 5 times and it's all come up negative after his meeting with Stuart Armstrong in a room, and Stuart Armstrong suddenly is available to play for Southampton. Here's what Mikel Arteta had to say about trying to get Tierney available.
Yeah, this is getting very complicated when we are sending players abroad, and obviously you lose control. Some authorities have different regulations to the actual ones in the Premier League. We are still having some discussions with the authorities, and hopefully we will know more this afternoon.
So if they get Tierney fit, then everybody will be looking and thinking, is Ryan Christie going to be available, Roughie?
Yeah, it is. It's a problem one, because obviously we saw the trouble that St Mirren had, we saw the troubles that Kilmarnock had, and there was a stringent letter went out to everybody. If any player, it doesn't matter who it is tested positive, then it's a quarantine. So you're now trying to bend the rules for certain players, and I'm sure other teams who haven't been able to are not big enough, to test the water. Will be a wee bit miffed by this whole thing if there is a loophole that you can get a big player into a team, because the rules are there for everybody, not just for the big teams, are the big players as well.
Yeah, I don't see him getting a chance to play in the game. He'll be absolutely miffed about that. But I think the major dilemma for Celtic, first of all, Mark, is would you throw Odsonne Edouard back into the country on the Friday, maybe training on his own all the way up to that? Would you throw him in for this game?
I think if he's fit and well and healthy, then I don't see why not. He knows his team intimately. He's got nothing to learn before he plays. So if he's healthy, then I think you need your best player. So yeah, I would say yes.
Yeah, Griffiths.
Well, I mean, I'm a big fan of his. I wish he'd stay fit and I wish he'd stay playing. But he's a brilliant finisher. He's got an eye for goal, and you need that. One thing about the Old Firm games, you get chances. There's very rarely a kind of dour 0-0. So Lee Griffiths is a goal scorer, and I think you need goal scorers in your team. You've got to score more goals than them on Saturday. It's not going to be 0-0.
Yeah, that's the dilemma from the Celtic camp. Steven Gerrard probably goes into this game with maybe a couple of people trying to force his hand, but does he have a settled, strong 11 in his mind?
I think he will.
Oh, sorry, where did you go, Steve?
I think he will. I think their camp seems to be a much more less restless, if you like, in terms of all the COVID issues Celtic have had, and even players in the positions. I think most positions they have got players comfortably that will go into their system. There could be one or two that guys that have done well. Jordan Jones in the Motherwell game done well, but I don't know whether that will be enough to change. I think he'll go with his kind of guys that he's trusted with over in the past meetings and also the start of this season.
Yeah, okay. Roughie, should I go for you and your prediction early, or are you going to hang fire till Friday on it? What's your thoughts on it, Roughie? Because the only reason I'm saying that to you is Charlie Adam has opened a can of worms. He threw a grenade yesterday about there being unrest in the camp, and boy, did it ignite Celtic fans who have absolutely caned him relentlessly all across social media for it. I mean, all Charlie said was, some players wanted to move on but weren't able to. I mean, I don't know. I treat some stories and some suggestions I treat with a pinch of salt because the game takes care of itself, Roughie. But
yeah, I'd like everybody else. I'd like to see near enough the final lineup. I would like to see the answers to the questions we're asking there. Because it's a different debate if the team line comes in at the weekend and Edouard and Griffiths are in it. I think that changes the whole aspect of the game. Other things as well, the Rangers selection as well. Who do they play at the back? So I'm hanging off until I really get near the best 11 that are available to both teams.
Yeah, Brian Haig says there'll be a score draw for Rangers and Celtic. And Stephen Armstrong says, think you need to have a word with yourself, Peter. Always respected you and the lads on here, but Charlie Adams spread pure, unsubstantiated facts about Celtic players, and it's wrong. Could he prove it? No. So therefore, should not be stating it. Well, Stephen, with all due respect, I don't think you're the light, the way and the truth on where Charlie got his source from and what discussions he had with regards to a player who maybe wanted to leave in the summer. Lots of players want to leave. It's not a crime if you want to leave Celtic, Rangers, Liverpool or whatever. That's the way life goes in football. So, Charlie had his say on it. If you don't like it because you're a Celtic fan and because you don't like the narrative, I'm certainly not his defence lawyer, but he made it on good grounds of speaking to some people. Whether it affects the Old Firm game, I'm not so sure. And I'm going to ask Mark McGee on this because, strangely enough, Mark, I can remember you playing in an Old Firm game against a very, very good Rangers team that had won the league the previous season, and all the pressure was on your guys to come up trumps. So how is this one going to go in your mind?
Well, I think, first of all, with Charlie, I think Charlie is the master of misinformation at the moment, we need to be careful how we take his intel. As far as the game is concerned, I think that whatever good results Rangers have had against Celtic in recent years, I think they've arrived at a point now, given the form this season, where they can seriously and publicly kind of say that they think they have a chance, and that they go there, in the belief that they can win the game. It's not just blind optimism. They go there with a rationale that, we can win this because of the self-belief and the form that they've been shown this season. So I think that if Rangers don't win, I think Celtic will have played very, very well, and that Griffiths and Edouard would have turned up and played well and scored.
Yeah, and well, that's your probability line. What's your prediction?
I'm confused by all that.
That's a wonderful Roughie from the last 8 years of my life you've just said there. I understand the probabilities. Give me your prediction.
I was just reading out a text with Charlie Adam, that was all. I think, like I say, what I said in simple terms there is I think that Rangers could win.
Okay. So I know they could win. Are they going to win you?
Man, Mark,
Don't
you're safe
let
if
him
you're
off the
down in
hook.
England. Are you down in England?
Yeah,
You're
he's
all
like
right
Chris
then. Fire
Sutton.
away.
He's far enough away. Give us your
Fire
prediction,
away.
for God's sake, you. Come on.
Are you asking me who I want to win, or are you asking me who I think will win?
Oh, who do you think will win? Give us your prediction in the scoreline, for God's sake.
I think that Rangers will win 3-2.
3-2, 5 goals. That'll be an absolute howitzer of a game.
I know that Lenny and Gavin Strachan will never speak to me again, but hopefully,
Okay.
hopefully I'm watching.
Yeah, you know, it was that last 5 minutes was absolutely brilliant, Mark, because at one moment when you'd absolutely taken the baseball back to Charlie Adam, all of the Celtic fans and their messages were hailing you and absolutely magnificent. And then in one foul swoop, 3-2 Rangers, bang.
Yeah. Please, I'm saying, Peter, please, just a minute before you go, you say, "Oh, look, wee Gordon's on the phone here."
Exactly. Gary McGurn says, Peter, Charlie is Lord Haw-Haw. And for people of a certain age, you'll know exactly who Lord Haw-Haw was. I think that's what Mark was suggesting. Listen, he's good for him. That's what football's about. You make statements, some you stand by, some you don't. That's the joy of it. It's only a game. Calm your jets, everyone. Stevie, 3-2 to Rangers from Mark McGee. What about yourself?
I think it'll be cagier. I think I've found in the times at old firms, every day the expectations on Rangers just for Celtic's players that are out and probably lack of striking options, but it doesn't really ever go that way. A team that's the underdog seem to kind of get something, but I've been thinking it's going to be a draw all the time, but I think if anything, Rangers might sneak it 1-0.
Okay, so there's 2 for the Rangers. Roughie, you and I will wait till Friday and give our prediction on the programme.
I'm firing in now. 3-0 Celtic.
Anyway, I know you're shaking your head there. Do you want my prediction, Mark?
Absolutely want your prediction.
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I think the game, there are certain players that I think are absolutely overrated. I think the great thing about it, you said 3-2 there, I think there will be goals because I think despite the fact that Rangers have a good tight back line, they've really only been really tested at home, I think, domestically with Hibs. I think they give you chances. I think Celtic's defence give chances away. So I think there will be goals. I think Celtic might edge it 2-1 because I think, again, from their starting 11 to their bench, they have game changers. And I still think Rangers just need... There's something else, a bit of quality that needs to take them to another level that's not there yet. So I think Celtic will win it 2-1. Roughie, what's your call?
Unfortunately, I think I'm going to sit on the fence. Honestly, I think it's a 1 each all over it. I think both goalkeepers will be big players in this game. I think Rangers have got the better goalkeeper, which will help them. But I think either of the two of them could win this game for either one. But I'm going to sit on the fence, 1 each.
I think Peter. I think Peter. The thing about this game is it's not really necessarily about the ability of players in the squad and all that. It transcends that. It's about the mentality. It's about the momentum you take in, the belief you take into it. And I think Rangers are getting into it in a great state of mind, if you like. And that's why I give them the edge. Not because I think they've got better players than Celtic.
Absolutely. Listen, we would probably go round the houses, and as I see so many messages coming in from so many of the fans offering their suggestions on the game. Listen, we value them because everybody who joins the show, Stephen Donoghue, 2-1 Rangers. Jay Milne thinks Celtic are going to win. Ronnie Porter thinks Rangers will win 3-2. Lots of people. And Alex Kelly, who's a big Rangers fan, who likes a noise up. Alex just listens to the programme and then waits to see if he can throw a grenade in to annoy everybody. And he says, Peter just can't go against his team. Bring back wee Barry. Well, Alex, It's a great line. I've been right for the last 8 years. But nevertheless, I still think Rangers have still got 2 or 3 players to take it to another level. It's just my call on it. Listen, as Jockstein said, only a fool would try and predict an Old Firm game, and then Davy Wilson says 2-1 Rangers. Is this Gordon?
Charlie Adam on the phone. 5-0. 5-0.
Yeah, Mark, you're not too wrong on it, by the way. The joy of it is everybody's off on their predictions. 2 quick things before we go. Don't forget, join us if you can, 11 o'clock in the morning, Saturday. If you want your punditry, the great thing about the 21st century, the way the whole social media is going, the way television is changing, you can pick the team you want to be with. We would love for you to be with us. We'll be on from 11 o'clock in the morning. We'll be there giving you the build-up, letting you hear some of the managers and players ahead of the game. Excuse me. And then after the game, we will analyse it, and you'll hear from the managers and their thoughts on Celtic against Rangers, and we'll look ahead to some of the other games that are taking place and some of the good games that are taking place in the Premiership and reflect on the Championship. 2 quick points before we go. Stephen, I'm really looking forward to Friday night. I'll be there at Tynecastle to see Hearts against Dundee. Is this, in your mind, the 2 teams that really will be contesting the title, or are there others that you think will be in the mix?
No, I think there will be others. I think Inverness will be a team that will want to be associated with up the top, and with it being a shorter season, I think that if a team starts off well and builds a bit of momentum, it becomes slightly easier to maintain that with a shorter season. But Dundee and Hearts are the 2 biggest clubs in the division, so naturally everybody will say that and it should be a good game to open up with. We'll be confident. We've had a long pre-season, but we're going there full of confidence to win the game, to be honest.
Well, I always say to people, by the way, Stephen, I know you are backing me on this. I always tell people, if you are going to gamble, make sure you gamble responsibly. I've got 2-1 Hearts and you to get booked within the first 12 minutes.
I might not be allowed to get booked anymore now for that. I could get a ban for that.
Oh, of course, yeah. Sorry, I wish I hadn't said that. Mark, let's move on quickly. Mark, Dundee United against Aberdeen. When you played in that game, boy, those teams were absolutely magnificent. No harm to the boys today. I would love to take somebody now back to Dundee United Aberdeen in the 80s. I could rhyme off both sides that were just rippling with quality.
Wow, I mean, Dundee United at that time, Luggy, Paul Sturrock, and, their back four, and they were a great team, they really were. And those games, the result that always stands for me is 3-0. They either beat us 3-0 or we beat them 3-0. There was a lot in between, but you were never, even going to Celtic or going to Rangers and that, there was less certainty going to play Dundee United than there was going to either of the Old Firm in those days. You never knew what to expect, but you knew they had good players. They really did.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's your prediction on that one then? Give us your call.
I think Aberdeen will win the game.
Yep, I'm with you, Aberdeen. Roughie, Aberdeen or Dundee United?
Aberdeen for me. I think Dundee United have just slipped up a wee bit. Their confidence will be low with the last couple of results they've had, so a home win for me.
Stevie?
I agree with Roughie.
Okay, there you are. Short and sweet from the big man there. Absolutely magnificent. I agree with Roughie. No more needs to be said on it. Stevie, I'm absolutely delighted you're back playing. Good luck tomorrow night. As I said to Charlie yesterday on the programme, great to see you strutting your stuff. I'm looking forward to the game. It's going to be great at Tynecastle. The only message I would leave everyone with is, please, if you're going to watch the game, do it in your own house. Don't go anywhere near Celtic Park. Don't go huge distances because it has implications for everyone. We certainly wouldn't like to see anyone perish just because of the stupidity of others travelling and infecting people elsewhere. It's difficult, especially in an Old Firm game, but please, let's do the sensible thing on this. Don't forget to like, share and follow us on Facebook. And if you are doing that and sharing it with your friends, then you're in the mix to win you that fantastic set of prizes, brilliant Hall of Fame legends that we have in our Hall of Fame, all those prints, also the T-shirts and the iPad as well. To Mark McGee, Steven Naismith and Alan Ruff and myself, Peter Martin, have a great weekend. Thank you to you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow, and don't forget to join us live Saturday, 11 in the morning. Thanks for watching.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit